Welcome to the Elon News Network Election Center. Tonight, North Carolinians decide who they want to see on the ballot in November for governor and U.S. Senate.
In Alamance County, voters narrowed down a crowded field for county commissioner. Also here on campus, an election of our own. We'll hear from the new executive president live.
And the Democratic presidential candidates face off here in North Carolina and in 13 other states during the biggest delegate day of the 2020 primary season. All candidates looking to take on one man.
I'm the woman who's going to beat Donald Trump.
If you want someone who has the resources to beat Trump, that's me.
Everybody knows who Donald Trump is. We got to let them know who we are. We choose hope over fear.
Make sure that we defeat the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country, Donald Trump.
Our team is in place with Baylor Rodman breaking down the presidential contest, Brian Ray tracking state races, and our team out in the field and in our newsroom, updating us with the latest information. We've got it covered tonight, and it all starts right now. Good evening and welcome to our special Elon News Network Super Tuesday coverage. We are following numerous races tonight, but we begin this hour with an E&M projection. ENN has 4 projections to start off our show tonight. The first one being that we can now project that former Vice President Joe Biden has won the North Carolina Democratic primary. Right now we have Joe Biden with 35% of that vote, with 23% of precincts reporting. On the other side of that aisle, that second projection is that President Donald Trump has won the Republican presidential primary. He will go on to win delegates tonight to then become the Republican nominee for president. Our third is a little bit closer to home. Incumbent Governor Roy Cooper has won the Democratic governor's primary to go on and become the Democratic candidate for the North Carolina governor. Like I said, he is currently the governor and will be the incumbent. And that fourth is also an incumbent. Senator Thom Tillis, who holds that seat, has won the Republican
of the vote, followed by Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders with 23.1%. We can also project that Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders will win his home state of Vermont, and we'll bring those numbers to you a little bit later. But just to give you some context, the former 3-term mayor of New York City, Michael Bloomberg, also coming in third here with 16.7%, so meeting that 15% threshold to actually go ahead and receive delegates tonight. So that is big. Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren, though, coming in with just 10.8% so far, with again 40% of our precincts reporting. So not finalized yet, but currently she does not meet enough delegates. Here in the gray, we have Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar. They are grayed out because, yes, they did indeed drop out of the presidential contest. However, a lot of people across North Carolina and the other 13 states tonight early voted. And you can see Buttigieg so far coming in with about 7.3% of the vote. So that is pretty major. So clearly taking away some votes, he and Klobuchar from some of the others. What does that mean? That for someone like Elizabeth Warren, for example, who isn't meeting that 15% threshold. So we'll bring those numbers to you as well. But again, as of right now, we can project that the former Vice President Joe Biden will indeed win North Carolina, along with some other states, but we'll bring that to you a little bit later. Maeve, right now back to you.
Thanks, Baylor. And with millions of votes cast here in North Carolina, it's up to the State Board of Elections to count all of those votes. We are going to be there at the Board of Elections later in the show, but even though around 800,000 people decided to vote early here in North Carolina, several people turned out at their local precincts today to cast their ballot. We took to the polls to hear what issues the voters are passionate about and why they decided to get out and vote. And we apologize for technical difficulties. I am now going to throw it over to our Brian Ray, who could talk a little bit more about that projection that Roy Cooper is going to be the Democratic nominee for the governor. Brian?
That's right, Maeve. So like you said, incumbent Governor Roy Cooper will be on the ballot in November for the Democrats. And as of right now, we don't know his opponent, but checking the polls right before we came on air, it looks like Lieutenant Governor Dan Forest will likely be joining him on the ballot for the Republicans. So a Meredith College poll found for Roy Cooper that he has a 45% job approval rate, which was the highest for all major political figures in the state. So it's not too surprising that he will be on the ballot again. And as for Thom Tillis, he did receive President Trump's re-election endorsement. So he also is on the ballot for the Senate race, not the governor's race. And he calls himself a fiscal conservative who is against tax increases and favors a lot of what President Trump and his administration are doing. That's my update for you right now. Maeve, back to you.
Thanks, Brian. And again, with millions of votes cast here in North Carolina, it's up to the State Board of Elections to provide a detailed count of every vote for every candidate. Our Isabella Seaman is live at the Alamance County Board of Elections, getting a behind-the-scenes look at how these votes are coming into the county. Isabella?
Yes, Maeve, I am here live at the Board of Elections in Graham, where people are currently walking in and out the door, handing over their votes. So, Alamance County has 37 precincts that all report their votes to the Board of Elections tonight. This year, we had paper ballots, so each voter filled out a paper ballot. They put it into the machine calculated their votes. At the end, tonight at 7:30, when the polls closed, each chief judge, the 2 other judges, or volunteers compiled all of those votes and are bringing them straight here to the Board of Elections as we speak. Once they get here, they get taken into this back room right over here. They get compiled and put out to the public. That's just a little bit of information about the process that happens at the Board of Elections, live in Graham. Back to you in the studio, Maeve.
And Isabella Seaman will be with us live throughout the night. Bella, we'll check back in with you shortly. Even though around 800,000 people decided to vote early here in North Carolina, several people turned out at their local precincts today to cast their ballot. We took to the polls to hear what issues the voters are passionate about and why they decided to get out and vote.
Civic duty, but also just because I am originally registered in Missouri and I voted there last year, but my North Carolina is a swing state, so my vote has more count in North Carolina because in Missouri my vote is the opposite of what our state usually is.
This is my first time ever voting. I am originally registered in Lafayette, Louisiana, but I got an email from Elon Votes telling me to change my voter registration, so I did.
It's very important. It's important to this country that it gets fixed, in my opinion, and so there was a need to get out.
I'm in support of a particular candidate, Julian Doby, who's running for district court judge, and I'm out just here trying to rock the vote for him and help him out.
If you are looking ahead to November and want information on how to vote, you can go to elon.edu/elonvotes for more information. And while polls are closed now, results are still coming in as we speak. While college campuses tend to be more liberal, Alamance County has proven to vote more conservatively in the past. According to the New York Times, in 2016, 54% of Alamance County voted for Donald Trump in the presidential election. And in 2012, 56% voted for then Republican candidate Mitt Romney. In fact, according to data from MIT, Alamance County has voted red in every presidential election since 2000. And our Amanda Gibson is at the Mosley Center right now, where students are watching for these election results. Amanda, what's going on?
Thank you so much, Maeve. I am joined tonight by Sophie Girth, the Director of Civic Engagement for Elon Votes. Thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Yeah, of course. I'm happy to be here.
So in the 2016 election, we had 43% of student participation, where the national average was 50%. So what is Elon Votes trying to do to get that civic engagement up this year and for the 2020 election?
I think the biggest thing is starting these conversations earlier, and we've been planning our schedule for the fall of 2020 for a very long time now. So we're getting prepared, we're getting ready, we're hosting events, we're rebranding Elon Votes to basically start these conversations as soon as possible. So when it's go time, we're all going to be ready and prepared.
And so tonight, the beginning of this watch party, you're starting to see those results come in, those predictions. Your primary at home in Washington State isn't for a couple of weeks, but how will tonight's result impact the way you'll be voting in that primary?
With Elon Votes, we try to stay nonpartisan, so I won't talk specifically about my beliefs. But I think that for the country in general, this will be very telling. We're in the winnowing process right now, where it's going to become really clear who's the front runner of any given party. And so tonight will be huge, especially given the fact that California is participating in Super Tuesday this year, and California makes up for about 30% of the delegates awarded tonight. So it'll be a big night.
Well, thank you so much, Sophie, for joining us, and we will be getting student reactions throughout the night. So, Maeve, back to y'all.
Amanda will also be with us live throughout the night tonight. Amanda, thanks so much. And coming up after the break, we have a live panel of students here in studio to break down the results and current state of our local elections. And later, SGA President-elect Robbie Miley will be here after being elected Elon's newest student leader. What is this?
See on page 4 that the projections need to be blood next Thursday?
Seriously? Thursday? Can't do that.
This is really inconvenient.
I have yoga that day. I have no time for this. So.
I can't do Thursday, but I can do Friday.
Disasters don't plan ahead. You can. Talk to your loved ones about how you're going to be ready in an emergency. Don't wait. Communicate.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes? B, console her?
Don't worry, sweetie. This is gonna happen a lot.
Or C, find her a new boyfriend?
Nice, single boys. That was weird.
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. And as soon as I start to make my breakfast, Hamilton is right there. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. I mean, look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Alvin and the Chipmunks want to remind you, bacteria can hide in food and make you ill.
Wow.
But you can keep bacteria from ruining your day with 4 simple steps. Clean.
I'm waiting for the rinse cycle.
Separate. Cook.
Fire in the hole!
And chill.
We chipmunks are notoriously tidy.
Check your steps. The road trip to food safety starts at foodsafety.gov.
Welcome back to ENN's special live Super Tuesday coverage. Joining us throughout the evening to provide their insight and analysis is President of Young Democrats of Alamance County, Emma Greenberg, and Elon Senior Sam Greener. Both of you, thanks so much for joining us. I just want to start off by saying, how are you guys both politically involved on campus? Tell me a little bit about yourselves.
So I've had internships with Democratic parties before. So last summer I was interning with the New Hampshire Democratic Party. Over January, I was in Iowa, and I got to intern with the Iowan Democratic Party. And last semester, I helped charter, and I'm now president of the Young Democrats of Alamance County. So that's not on campus, it's out in the community, out in Burlington, and it's for people ages 18 to 36.
Personally, I haven't had much experience on Elon's campus, but I interned at the Congressional Leadership Fund, which is a Republican super PAC. And I also interned for the Ed Gillespie governor's campaign in Virginia in 2017. So I've been on elections and worked doors and things like that.
Yeah, and so a few of our very first projections here, we have Roy Cooper, the incumbent governor, and Thom Tillis, one of the incumbent senators here in North Carolina. How are you guys feeling about those projections?
Yeah, I don't think those come to any surprise. I think when you have an incumbent, you have the name recognition, you have all the advantages that come with it. So I don't think anybody was super surprised with those results.
Yes, I agree completely. Thom Tillis was definitely the favorite by a good margin. There wasn't really anybody that could compete with him in terms of money or resources, and the same goes with Roy Cooper in his gubernatorial election.
Yeah, and so just in general, you know, we have those two projections, and we've called Joe Biden, but what else are you guys looking forward to see tonight? What do you want to see? What do you hope maybe not to see?
I think with presidentials, along with that line, I think You're going to have people maybe drop out either tonight or after tonight, depending on how well they do in the delegate count after that. And thinking locally, we have a lot of local elections. Those are the elections that affect the people's day-to-day life the most, and I think those often get overlooked. So I'm really excited and looking forward to seeing the results of the county commissioner primary.
In terms of the national election, I'm definitely interested to see how the Democratic candidates who have dropped out, where their support is now going, especially Amy Klobuchar, Pete Buttigieg, and seeing if their votes go more center or if they're going to go more to Bernie Sanders. Also, I'm very interested to see how the Senate race goes with Cal Cunningham.
Yep, perfect. And they will be back with us for the rest of the night. But just as Greenberg said, she is the president of the Young Democrats of Alamance County. Our Ashley Moran has more on that organization.
The presidential election may not be the biggest 2020 election for North Carolina. New legislatures may emerge and decide district lines for the next decade. This means every vote matters, all the way down the ballot. Alamance County community members gathered at Burlington Beer Works Saturday to toast Democratic Representative nominee Eric Henry's campaign. While Henry is pushing for more Democratic representation in the state, he says the answer to the state's problems is not simply red or blue.
Not one party, not one person has all the answers. The answers could be across the aisle. We need to look for compromise to do that.
Chair for Alamance County Democratic Party, Elaine Berry, says this compromise relies on more people getting involved.
If you don't like what you see going on today, be part of the solution.
And according to Elon Sr. and Young Dems of Alamance President Emma Greenberg, a big problem is right here on Elon's campus.
College students don't vote, we don't get our voices heard, and that means nobody's representing issues that are specific and important to us.
Greenberg says young voters need to break out of the Elon bubble.
We're inheriting all of this, so let's make it the best world for us and our future generations, our children. Who's coming along?
Ashley Moran, Elon Local News.
If you're age 18 to 36 and interested in joining Greenberg, Young Dems of Alamance meets the first Friday of every month at the county's Democratic headquarters. And we're now going to check in with our Brian Ray, who joins us in studio. Brian, tell us more about this governor's race.
Yes, Maeve. So as we said earlier, Roy Cooper, the incumbent governor, is going to be the Democratic candidate on the ballot in November, and he was running against retired U.S. Army Captain Ernest Reeves. But as for our Republicans, here's a little bit about them. This is Lieutenant Governor Dan Forest, and during our commercial break, he has about 90% of the vote right now, but it is still pretty early, so it hasn't been officially called yet, and he is running against State Representative Holly Grange for that seat on the ballot in November. So a little bit about them, a little bit more about Roy Cooper. He invested $3.2 billion in hurricane recovery and is also fighting for Medicaid, he says. And Ernest Reeves ran to combat opioid and drug use as well as education initiatives. As for our Republicans, Lieutenant Governor Dan Forest has many student-first education policies and is also interested in investing in infrastructure, while Grange is running on her support from state sheriffs cooperating with ICE and passing tort reform that limits trial lawyers. So we will keep watching this race to update you on the Republican candidates for the governor. Maeve.
Today might be Super Tuesday, but our team here at Elon News Network has been working to cover these races leading up to today as presidential candidates came to North Carolina to hold rallies and meet voters. We'll be looking at multiple presidential rallies throughout the show tonight, but here's a look back at what Bernie Sanders had to say in Winston-Salem.
Our agenda is saying that in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, we are sick and tired of workers earning starvation wages.
He supports college students and everything, so I felt like it would be good for me to go and just represent my school. So I feel like he's just gonna help a lot with everything. I like how he's really dedicated to HBCUs and bettering black communities.
It is absolutely unacceptable to me, by the way, that here in North Carolina you have the lowest rate of unionization in the country.
Baylor Rodman is now here in studio to tell us about how Bernie's doing tonight across the nation. Baylor?
Thank you, Maeve. Yeah, it's still early, but if you are at the Bernie camp right now, a little rough. He is winning right now in his home state of Vermont. Oh, I'm sorry, that's New Hampshire. But he did win here in New Hampshire, right? This was back in the day. So you experienced that. You would think that the northeastern states, that's going to be where he's really doing. He narrowly won there to Pete Buttigieg. But I wanted to click on Vermont, his home state. Let's go to that. There you go. And we could, again, as I said earlier, project that the Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders will, in fact, win his home state of Vermont, and pretty handily there with 51.7% of the vote. Then the former vice president down at 22.1%. Big states where Bernie might make a big play is California. We are indicating that he is currently doing pretty well in Colorado, but at this point, it's still a little too close to call that for us. Seems to be tied right now with Bloomberg at about 30%. So we're not ready to call that yet. I will say Virginia was another state that the Bernie camp was hoping to maybe defeat Joe Biden there as well, although he did not. He was not able to do that, coming in second with 23.1% of the vote, with Joe Biden winning there pretty handily with 53.3% of the vote. So all in all, this is starting to be a pretty good night for Joe Biden. But it's not over yet for Bernie. We are expecting that when California rolls through, again, the polls there have not closed, but there are 415 delegates at stake. How many will Bernie take, and will he be able to win? We'll have our delegate breakdown coming a little bit later. Maeve?
And still to come on our ENN special coverage, SGA President-elect Robbie Miley will join us in studio for his reactions to the top seat in tonight's election.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Kids will spend 15 minutes watching online videos like this one.
Brushing for 2 minutes now can save your child from severe tooth pain later. 2 minutes, twice a day. They have the time.
I rescued Toast from a shelter in 2011. I love Toast because she's a lazy diva. Toast does whatever she wants, obviously. She's sleeping right now. She's an epic snuggler. She's so comforting. She's so loving. Toast makes me laugh. When I walked into the shelter, I knew right then that she was special.
You make me wear my bike helmet. Taught me never to run with scissors. And to follow the swimming rules. You tell me to stay away from drugs. To always buckle my seatbelt.
So why do you keep a loaded gun in your drawer?
How safe is that?
You asked them to follow some safety rules. Now they're asking you. In fact, they're counting on you. Never let your gun get into the wrong hands. Remember, always lock it up. Visit ncpc.org.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. Getting that college education? What are you gonna do? Graduate and take some office job? Be like everybody else? Or will you dare do something different? Like, be a teacher. You could be my teacher. You got the skills. The smarts? Yes, you. You could be the teacher I never forget. That'd be cool. Does that corporate job even have recess? What are you gonna make of yourself? What are you gonna make of me?
When Alamance County voters went to the polls today, one issue on the ballot was if the sales tax will be raised. It's this Alamance County tax referendum. Our Brian Ray is here to break that down. Brian?
Yes, Maeve, the current sales and use tax rate in the county is 6.75%, and the new increase would raise the rate to an even 7%. According to the Alamance County Commissioners, this won't have a significant impact on the price of goods affected by the tax. Items like groceries and gas won't be affected. So, for example, right now, a $10 purchase will be $10.68 after taxes. If the new tax is enacted, the purchase would then be $10.70. For a $100 purchase, the tax currently puts the total to $106.75, but that new tax would make the total $107. Alamance County Commissioners voted in October to add this to the ballot, and they believe that this sales tax increase can be used as a way to reduce property taxes in Alamance County. Maeve?
For more information on the proposed sales tax increase, check out our website, elonnewsnetwork.com. And we are now joined by SGA President-elect Robbie Miley. Robbie, thanks for joining us and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And so first of all, this is pretty new. How does it feel?
Yeah, it doesn't even feel real, honestly. I knew it was going to be like a really close race, and I was hopeful, but I didn't know if I was going to end up getting it. So it's an amazing feeling. I can't really describe it.
Yeah, and you won by 25 votes. That's pretty narrow. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think it really just kind of shows that, don't take anything for granted and really make the most of every opportunity, because you never know, if you're going to get it or not, and you really got to try your best to be the voice of the entire student body and reaching out to as many people as possible.
And so you've talked a lot about how you've campaigned and how you kept trying your best. What was the campaign trail like?
Yeah, it was really stressful just because last year they had 2 weeks to campaign, and this year it was only 1 week. And so we kind of had to cram just about everything into 1 week. And so I really tried really hard to storm board. I tried to go a bunch of different organizations, hand out pieces of candy. So it was really intense and stressful, but rewarding.
And so this is kind of on to a different subject, but the executive secretary seat, that is vacant. So
Yeah.
do you have any idea of who is going to fill that seat, and what's the process like to fill it?
Yeah, I have a few ideas in mind, but I want to work with the executive vice president and treasurer to make sure it's someone that we all feel comfortable working with. And I also plan on reaching out to several different individuals, and I got to hear back from what they plan on doing in SGA in the upcoming year. So there's a few ideas and a few people in mind, but I haven't solidified who it is going to be.
And you ran against Brandon Veal, who is the current class president of your class. You're the vice president. Is he one of your options?
He's definitely one of my options that I'd like to consider. Again, I'd want to talk to the executive vice president and treasurer, see what they think. I also haven't talked to Brandon directly, so I don't know exactly what his plans are, but he's definitely someone I would be willing to consider.
Yeah, and there's also a lot of vacancies, especially in that class of 2021 group. Is that your job to fill those, and is that the same process?
Yeah, so I am the person that will be appointing those positions. So it will be a process to appoint a lot of different positions because there is a lot of vacancy throughout the Senate. But I'm going to work really hard to try and find the best people for those positions.
And so this is a little bit of a different question, kind of random, but that first SGA meeting when you are officially executive president, what is that going to look like under your leadership?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be, I don't know, a transition for sure, just because I've always been a part of the Senate. I haven't been like the person leading that. So I'm not exactly sure what it's going to look like. I definitely plan on working closely with Jack Johnson and hearing what he has to say about the position and trying my best to implement my own kind of style in the position itself.
And so you said that you've been on the Senate, but have you ever worked with anyone else on the executive membership board?
Yeah, so I'm the assistant to the executive vice president, Louisa Scholler. So this past year, I worked very closely with her in her task and what she did. So I got kind of an inside look and see what people on exec really do behind the scenes.
And what about the newly elected vice president and treasurer?
Jonathan Stetler and Andrew. Yeah, so Jonathan was actually my suite mate freshman year. We actually both ran for freshman class president, and neither of us got it. So it's kind of interesting to look back at that neither of us won our freshman election, but now we're both serving as vice president and president. And I don't know Andrew that well, but just hearing him speak and talking to him, he seems like a really great guy. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, and what are some of your goals for this year?
Yeah, I have a lot of goals. One, our voter turnout was really, really low, and it was something that I talked about beforehand, but I don't think the student body necessarily feels connected to the members on SGA, and that's something I want to work to change. I want to work closely with ENN to kind of get people to know who we are and what we do so they do feel comfortable coming to us. Mental health is another thing that I really want to work to tackle. I think we have like a big mental health issue here on campus. Since I've came to Elon, there have been several students that have unfortunately taken their life, and I think that's a really big flag that something needs to change. Thirdly, improving the civic engagement here on campus. Elon was recently ranked one of the worst universities across the nation in terms of civic engagement, and 2020 is a really important election year, so I really plan on working really hard with Elon Votes to kind of change that. Those are some of the things that I want to work towards, but I also want to be open to new ideas and being the voice of what the students want.
And then you're the vice president of your class right now. For this last year being on SGA, what do you think has been some of the highlights, and what do you think are some things that you can improve on?
And like me specifically, or okay?
You specifically, SGA in general, anything that you think?
Yeah. So I think one of the highlights was writing a piece of legislation that was worth $50,000. The legislation itself incentivizes faculty to use free and online textbooks as opposed to traditional textbooks that can cost upwards of $150. So that was something that I was most proud of, but something that can definitely be improved is reaching out to the student body. I think that's something that is severely lacking, both in class officer positions, but also executive positions and all other positions on SGA.
All right, Robbie, thank you so much. And thanks again. We will also be now going to Amanda Gibson, who is live in the Mosley Center with more reactions. And that's where they announced those SGA results earlier today. Amanda?
Grace, I'm joined here with Grace Patino. Sorry. But can you tell me, so you're from New York, you voted today in North Carolina's primary. Why is that?
Well, I vote Democratic generally. I mean, it's the second election, but New York always goes blue. So then I thought maybe my vote would count more or differently voting in North Carolina, which is generally a state, but also tends to vote red. That's why.
And then Katie Grinnell, who's also an Elon sophomore, can you tell me a little bit about who you voted for today? And you also voted in North Carolina rather than your home state, but who got your vote and why?
So I voted for Warren because I think she has the most well thought out plans. I really like her stances on everything. I'm all for women being in office. And she really presented herself really well in debate, where I saw other candidates kind of fall apart, attack each other, not really answer the question. So I just felt all around she presented herself as a really solid candidate.
And so, as of right now, Biden and Sanders seem to be kind of pulling out in front of the polls. So if Warren does not move past tonight, decides to withdraw from the race, where will your vote go?
Definitely. Well, not definitely. So I side more with Bernie on plan. He and Warren are very similar with their policies, what they want to do. But what I would really love, and what I think is the best idea for the Democratic Party, is if Biden becomes the nominee, to pick Warren as his running mate, to have a female running mate, number one, but to also appeal to the wider Democratic Party as a whole and not continue to be divided. We need to unite the party if we really want to beat Trump, and I think that's the best way to do it.
Well, thank you so much. Maeve, we'll send it back to you in the studio.
Thank you so much, Amanda. And like we just said, Robbie Miley has won the executive president position for SGA. The vice president is going to be Jonathan Stetler. That secretary seat is empty, like we just talked about with Miley. And the treasurer is Andrew Ciampa. For the class of 21, the president is going to be Jessica Flaxenberg. A lot of those seats are empty, as you can see, but one of those two senators is going to be Kira Letzinger. As far as the class of 2022, the president is going to be Haley Juergens, with Vice President Daniel DeRosiak, Secretary Jack Corby, again, a vacant treasurer, and two senators, Liam O'Connor and Andrea Sheets. And for the class of 2021, the president is going to be Chase Solomon. We will have the rest of those candidates for you soon.
I am captain of the track team. And if I'm late,
She doesn't really think she's going to get out of here, does she?
be nice. She's new. Hello, is anyone there? Ugh.
Wow. Even from our standards, you look awful.
Oh, sweetie, what happened? Me? My friend Becky got to talk to this super cute boy, and I tried to act like I wasn't jealous, but I so totally was. And then out of nowhere, this concrete barrier just popped up. Maybe it was a semi.
You mean you were driving?
Yeah. I mean, I know the whole eyes on the road thing, but this was a super important text. Maybe you have to know, Becky.
Texting? Great.
But it was only like 5 seconds, and I'm a really, really fast texter, so it wasn't even a big deal. Actually, has she texted me back yet? Wow, I get like no bars in this place. I wonder if they have Wi-Fi here.
Awkward. I'm the awkward silence. You try to avoid me, then there I am again.
But an awkward silence can be a great thing.
Like Kelly here is about to demonstrate.
You haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
I'll be right back.
Hi. You think you're probably sober?
Yeah.
But you're thinking about taking the back roads home, just in case. If you're probably sober, then why would you do that? Good choice.
Probably okay isn't okay. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
That's a full glass of wine. I'll be chatting you later.
We are back with a projection here. ENN is projecting that Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina, Dan Forest, has won the Republican primary to become the Republican candidate for the North Carolina governor. He will face in November the incumbent Governor Roy Cooper on that Democratic side. He was at 90% of the vote with 48% of precincts reporting. And we have already heard a lot about this governor's race. And now Brian is going to tell us a little bit more about that North Carolina Senate race. Brian?
Yeah, Maeve said there were 9 people running for the U.S. Senate today on the ballot. And as we know, Tom Tillis has secured that Republican candidacy for the November ballot. But here are some of our Democratic potentials here on the left. There are 5 of them. As of right now, Cal Cunningham seems to be pulling ahead in the polls. He's a former state senator and has run for the U.S. Senate before. He's an attorney and Iraq War veteran and says he will expand Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act and lower prescription drug costs. Erica Smith is trailing closely behind him. She's a math teacher and an ordained minister and says she'll promote rural investments and clean energy initiatives. Steve Swenson is also running and he has interest in Roe v. Wade, Sexual Assault and Torture Act, and an African American Restoration and Appropriations Act. Trevor Fuller is the Mecklenburg County Commissioner right now, and he believes in universal early childhood education, immigration reform, higher minimum wage, and improvements to health care. Lastly, we have Atul Goel over there, and he is a medical doctor who is deployed twice as a surgeon for the U.S. Air Force. And he has refused political donations from special interests, corporate PACs, and people outside of the state. So we'll be watching closely to see which of these Democrats will be facing off for Tillis in the Senate race come November. Maeve?
Thanks, Brian. And we're now going to go back to our Isabella Seaman, who is live in Graham at the Alamance County Board of Elections. Bella, who do you have with you?
Thank you so much, Maeve. Joining with me now is Matt Ortel. Matt Ortel is a Elon University senior and is also an intern here at the Board of Elections. Matt, thank you so much for joining us tonight. First of all, what is your job tonight at the Board of Elections?
Yeah, so tonight I'm just helping out with administrative stuff, whatever they need me to do. They really bring me in to be the muscles here and just carry things around, whatever they need me to do, help gather all the equipment from the busy day.
Amazing, amazing. And what is it like being an intern here during an election year?
It's really awesome actually, because you get to be more involved with the election process than just voting. So I'm helping out in whatever ways I can. The other day I was out at an early voting site helping out there. So really just being more involved with the whole election process.
What is it like being a college student and so involved in this election process?
It's cool because not a lot of people get to experience this. I'm the only intern here in the county, so it's cool to be able to help out while still, going to school and doing all that. So.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us, Matt. And we are live in Graham at the Board of Election Center in Alamance County. Maeve, back to you in the studio.
Bella, thanks again. And Pete Buttigieg may have dropped out of the race for president, but not before visiting North Carolina. Here's what one of his last rallies as a presidential candidate looked like.
I want to salute all of our competitors. I want to thank the voters of South Carolina, especially black voters who showed that famous Southern hospitality over the last year, welcoming us into their homes and churches and neighborhoods and businesses.
The conventional wisdom has been after New Hampshire and Iowa, he was going to hit a wall in terms of failing to break through to the African American community. So I think that question will be answered. I think also, certainly in terms of the contributions he's going to be getting financially, his ability to go on past Tuesday, I'm cautiously optimistic.
Not a lot of black people here. Yes. So I definitely wanted to come and see what it would be like, what's going on here. I don't see a lot of black people here, and that's what you hear. Like, he's got a black problem with the vote, and I just want to give him a chance.
As a mayor who lives hundreds of miles away from Washington, in a middle-class neighborhood, in a diverse city in the industrial Midwest, what I'm offering is a new approach in this election. I'm offering a nominee and a presidency where you could turn on the TV and actually feel your blood pressure go down instead of up through the roof.
My parents are, unfortunately, conservative, and I am not. And so we have a lot of political debates and discussions in my house. And one of the best things I've ever heard my dad say is, whenever Pete talks, he actually makes sense. And I've somehow managed to get my conservative parents on board with Pete Buttigieg.
While Buttigieg and Senator Amy Klobuchar have both recently visited the state, they have also since dropped out. Last night, Buttigieg and Klobuchar formally endorsed Joe Biden as the Democratic candidate for president. And we'll head over now to Baylor Rodman with an update on those Democratic presidential primaries. Baylor, what's going on?
Thank you. Yeah, as you said, Buttigieg and Klobuchar dropped out of the race and endorsed Joe Biden. You're starting to see that parallel in North Carolina, right? Joe Biden secured that victory here with 36% of the vote. But as we said, we're still following Buttigieg and Klobuchar because of early voting. Buttigieg now with 50% of the vote in, receiving about 6%, Klobuchar reaching about 4%. But let's go across the country, right? Because we're following 13 different states. One of which I want to point out is Texas. The polls have closed. And here's a little bit of an update there with 5% of the precincts reporting Bernie Sanders in the lead with 28.8%, following by Joe Biden with 22.8%. This is really big because there's 228 delegates at stake, right? This is one of the second largest pools across the country with those 13 different states. So we'll be monitoring that for you for sure. A few other things we want to point out. Let's go over to Maine, where Joe Biden right now is in the lead with 25% of the vote in, but pretty neck and neck with Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders with about 34% of the vote there. Elizabeth Warren, this is one of the first places she has so far met that threshold, but just slightly with 15.2%. And again, we only have 25% of the precincts reporting, so we'll have to follow that there. Michael Bloomberg does not do that. Virginia was a big one. We were able to call that for the former Vice President Joe Biden, who won there pretty handily with about 53% of the vote, followed by Bernie Sanders with 23%, Elizabeth Warren at 10%, and Michael Bloomberg at 9%. So Warren and Bloomberg not able to meet that 15% threshold to get delegates. But let's go to Colorado because we're able to make a projection there. The Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders will go ahead and secure the state of Colorado with 67 delegates up for grabs. He'll win that with 36.3% of the vote, so pretty handily. But Mike Bloomberg coming in at 23%, Joe Biden with 20%, and Elizabeth Warren at 16.7%. Again, there's only 20% of the vote right now in, but at this point, all of those top candidates who are left in the race will go ahead and receive some delegates at this time. We're still following places like Minnesota. That's coming in as well. This was Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar's state, right? She did drop out of the race, and we're seeing that that's pretty parallel, that those people went ahead and did go ahead and vote for Joe Biden after she endorsed him just a few days ago. Bernie Sanders, though, coming up pretty neck and neck with 32.4% of the vote, and Elizabeth Warren right now able to receive delegates meeting that 15% threshold. So we're still following a bunch of different races across the country. And as soon as we have results, we will bring those to you live. Again, California is the big one up for grabs. The polls there don't close for about another hour. But that is our largest pool with 415 delegates up for grabs. Right now, this is turning out to be a pretty good night for Joe Biden, but that can all change with California. Maeve?
Thanks so much, Baylor. And just a reminder, all of these results are going to be on our website, elonnewsnetwork.com. Our team is hard at work in the newsroom, making sure that you have all the most up-to-date information. We'll be right back.
He shouldn't eat his entire bowl of nachos, but tonight he's earned that right. Because a few hours ago in the middle of happy hour, he recognized a sign. Not from the gods or a bolt of lightning, but from a double heart, a kissy face, and a fourth ha in ha ha ha. That's when Jordan knew he was buzzed. So when it was time to go, he got a ride home instead of driving. Be a legend like Jordan. Recognize your buzzed warning signs and get a ride home. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
Let me tell you about the toughest guy on earth. He has the crazy strength to lift the man that raised him up without even flinching. This guy, this warrior, will always be by his father's side, even if his dad will hardly remember. If this guy isn't the toughest guy on the planet, then I don't know who is. Caregiving is tougher than tough. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
They said I couldn't dream. Called me a piece of trash and swore that's all I'd ever be. Said a bottle couldn't see the ocean. Give up. Go back to the dumpster. But I didn't listen. I made my way. And now, I am what I've always wanted to be.
My heart doesn't see race. Love is love.
And we are back now, joined by Emma and Sam again. Guys, again, thank you so much for being here. And like we've said, this is looking to be a pretty good Super Tuesday for Joe Biden. How do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, it's definitely looking like a great day for Joe Biden, especially if you look at Minnesota with a possible running mate of Amy Klobuchar. It's definitely her approval definitely impacted the polls in Minnesota. Also, Biden has basically swept the entire South, especially Virginia, which I did not have Virginia being a 20 to 30 point margin versus it was more supposed to be like closer to a 5 to 10 point margin. And I think the greater difference in that is going to show a lot in the delegates.
Yeah, I think after coming off the first 4 states, Biden only really winning in South Carolina, but he won with almost every other person voted for him. So I think this is the day he needed. People were really starting to question Joe Biden, and I think that says a lot about the Democratic Party, that the former vice president was potentially talking about dropping out, or people were like pondering that. So I think it said a lot about the Democratic Party that it was kind of getting weakened and the establishment was being weakened. And I think this is a strong showing that he definitely needed and his supporters definitely needed. And I'm sure the endorsements of Beto and Amy and Pete definitely helped last night in Texas.
Yeah, and speaking of those endorsements, how did you feel this weekend and yesterday when Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar bowed out of the race?
Just another New York Times alert kept popping up in class and kind of all scrambling. I think the Beto one was kind of a wild card. I didn't really see that one coming. I think we knew that when the two moderates, Pete and Amy, dropped that they were going to head towards Biden. But I really didn't expect the Beto endorsement. So I'm excited to see how much that helps Biden or whether or not it does in Texas, which is leaning towards a more purple state recently.
I would definitely say with Amy Klobuchar and Pete leaving, it was more of a surprise, but a lot of the people that left were avoiding a Super Tuesday election in their home state. So Amy didn't want to go back to Minnesota and then produce a losing result, especially if she got blown out by a person like Bernie Sanders or Mike Bloomberg. But with her endorsement of Joe Biden, it definitely swung that.
All right, and thank you guys so much. We'll be back again later in the night. But speaking of Pete Buttigieg, Elon sophomore Liz Krause is on the way home from Nevada after traveling with the Buttigieg campaign. She says his campaign gave her hope for the future of the United States.
It was definitely a bittersweet moment because we knew it was time, but at the same time, like, we wanted to see him go all the way.
Krause says she will support former Vice President Joe Biden moving forward, since he promotes the same message of unity Buttigieg did. And the town of Elon in northern Alamance County are a part of North Carolina's 64th district. Here, two men are running for the district's representative, incumbent Representative Dennis Riddell and cybersecurity lawyer Peter McClelland. McClelland, who is an Elon Law alumnus, says decisions about education should be made at the local level.
The decisions about education out of Raleigh, defer them down to our local level so that our school boards, our counties, and ideally as low as the principals and the parents can be the ones making decisions on education.
Riddell has been representing the 64th district since 2013. There is a generation gap between Riddell and McClelland. McClelland says that he is fit for this office because the Republican Party needs fresh faces and solutions.
Have a conservative generation of millennials coming forward to try and lead our communities and our state in the right direction.
Riddell did not respond to multiple requests for comment by Elon News Network. And we're now going to go back to Baylor, who's going to explain delegates. Baylor, tell me about it.
Yes, Maeve, for sure. But before I do, I want to quickly make a quick projection here on the great state of Minnesota. We can now project that Joe Biden will go ahead and win that state as well with 35.7% of the vote. Closely came Bernie Sanders with 32%, Elizabeth Warren so far meeting that threshold of 15%. So he's won Minnesota and he's doing well across the South, winning Virginia, winning Alabama. Oklahoma is doing pretty well there as, oh yeah, he did win. I quickly forgot. But yes, he did win Oklahoma as well, right? So we've talked about how he's sweeping across the South. So let's go to the delegate count. So right now, Joe Biden in the lead with 144 delegates, Bernie Sanders 101, Pete Buttigieg, who yes is out of the race with 26, and Elizabeth Warren with 9. Maeve?
ENN is now projecting that Cal Cunningham, and so sorry about that technical difficulty, that Cal Cunningham is going to be the Democratic nominee for the North Carolina Senate. He will be going against incumbent Senator Tom Tillis. He has 57% of the vote right now with 63% of precincts reporting. So yet another Elon News Network projection. We'll be right back.
See on page 4 that the projections need to be blood. Next Thursday?
Seriously? Thursday? Can't do that.
This is really inconvenient.
I have yoga that day. I have no time for this. So.
I can't do Thursday, but I can do Friday.
Disasters don't plan ahead. You can. Talk to your loved ones about how you're going to be ready in an emergency. Don't wait. Communicate.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes? B, console her?
Don't worry, sweetie. This is gonna happen a lot.
Or C, find her a new boyfriend?
Nice, single boys. That was weird.
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. And as soon as I start to make my breakfast, Hamilton is right there. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. I mean, look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Alvin and the Chipmunks want to remind you, bacteria can hide in food and make you ill.
Wow.
But you can keep bacteria from ruining your day with 4 simple steps. Clean.
I'm waiting for the rinse cycle.
Separate. Cook.
Fire in the hole!
And chill.
We chipmunks are notoriously tidy.
Check your steps. The road trip to food safety starts at foodsafety.gov.
And I am so sorry, a little bit of a correction. Cal Cunningham will be the Democratic nominee for the U.S. Senate, not the North Carolina Senate. I'm now going to throw it back over to Baylor, who is going to explain those delegates and now break it down. Baylor.
Thank you so much. Really quickly, before we do that, we have a projection to make in Arkansas. This is kind of going again with Joe Biden really sweeping the South tonight. He is going to win the state of Arkansas with 31.9% of the vote, followed by Bernie Sanders, Michael Bloomberg, and Elizabeth Warren. Right now, it does look like Biden, Sanders, and Bloomberg will each receive delegates. Warren, not so much right now. But let's go in and talk a little bit about the delegates. So, currently, again, Joe Biden has 144 delegates. Bernie Sanders has 101. Buttigieg, who's out of the race, has 26. Elizabeth Warren, 9. Amy Klobuchar also out 7. And Michael Bloomberg, 4. So a big question now that the former mayor of South Bend, Indiana, Pete Buttigieg, and the, Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar have suspended their campaigns is what happens to their delegates. Buttigieg, after the first 4 contests and his victory in Iowa, has 26 delegates under his belt, right, as Klobuchar has 7. Even though they are out of the race, Klobuchar and Buttigieg could pull more delegates in tonight as we take into account the high numbers of those who have early voted across the 14 states with primaries. As we start to look at the results, that looks a little more unlikely, but again is still possible. What these delegates are allowed to do varies slightly based on state laws and state party rulers. Delegates are pledged in all good confidence, reflect the sentiments of those who elected them. Generally, they will report to the Democratic National Convention as unpledged delegates, meaning that they're free to vote as they wish. A few states have more specific rules that can require delegates to still vote for the candidate within the first round. Now, if it's a contested convention, meaning no candidate has a clear majority, delegates of the candidates who have dropped out, like Buttigieg and Klobuchar, will usually be able to vote for other candidates as the party attempts to come to a consensus on its nominee. Since delegates are usually handpicked supporters of the candidates they back, it's quite likely that they'll follow the endorsements of their original candidates as soon as they're legally able to vote as they choose. And as we know, both Buttigieg and Klobuchar endorsed the former Vice President Joe Biden last night at his rally in Dallas, Texas. So it is likely that some of their delegates will go to Biden. Maeve?
And we are now joined by 2 Elon sophomores, Kara Shalafu and Andrew Sheets. You were both in Iowa right before the Iowa caucuses. After that experience, did you think this is where we would be come Super Tuesday?
I mean,
Not necessarily. I worked on the Biden campaign, and I think the strategy all along was to kind of do a lot better in the later states. I think that the big push that he got out of South Carolina, we were kind of expecting, but not necessarily all of the endorsements and people to drop out. So I think it was just kind of the perfect storm.
I definitely was seeing Bloomberg as a bigger player than he has been so far tonight. Yeah. He was kind of this unknown where nobody in Iowa really knew what to expect. And we came back to North Carolina and his ads are everywhere. But so far he has come up short.
Yeah.
And so Baylor was just talking about those delegates, Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg. Where do you think those delegates are going to go?
You know, I mean, it's merely a suggestion. They endorsed. Do the delegates have to follow that? No, it's just a suggestion. So I think it'll be kind of split.
I also think they'll probably go to Biden following their endorsement, but we'll see if a contested convention comes up. Who knows?
And then I know this might be a little too early to say, and we talked about this in Iowa. I was there with you guys, but do you have any guesses on who the nominee might be?
I'm going to go with Biden.
I'm also going to go with Biden just by early projections, but we have a long way to go.
All right, thank you guys both so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. We're now going to throw it back to Isabella Seaman, who again is live in Graham at the Alamance County Board of Elections. Bella?
Yes, Maeve, I am here with an update on the Alamance County Board of Commissioners. For the Democratic Party, Kristen Powers is leading with 26.4% of the vote. After that, we have Bob Byrd with 25.9% of the vote, so pretty close right there. Next, we have Dreama Caldwell with 17.9% of the vote. After that, we have Anthony Pierce with 15.97% and Henry Vines with 13.65%. Now, moving on to the Republican Alamance County Board of Commissioners, we have Bill Lashley coming in at 20.86% of the vote, John Paisley Jr. with 19.4% of the votes, Pamela Tyler Thompson with 16.5%, James Kirkpatrick with 0.41%. We have Blake E. Williams with 0.92%, Jim Johnson with 9.86%, and last but not least, Michael David Spruill with 5.98%. Now that is 21 out of the 31 precincts. Maeve, back to you.
Thank you, Bella. And I'm now going to give it and hand it over, to our Brian Ray. He has a little bit more on Cal Cunningham, that projected U.S. Senate Democratic nominee, and those county commissioners. Brian?
Yes, Maeve. So this right here is Cal Cunningham. And like you said, he will be on the ballot for the U.S. Senate alongside Tom Tillis on the Republican side. Now, a little bit more about Cunningham. He was a former state senator and has actually run for the U.S. Senate before, so this will be his first successful time on the ballot for the U.S. Senate. He's an attorney and an Iraq War veteran, and he says he'll expand Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act and lower prescription drug costs. Now, onto those county commissioners that Isabella told us about a little bit. So there are 12 people running for county commissioners. There are 5 Democrats and 7 Republicans. Now, each party will choose 3 to move on to the general election in November. So here is a little bit about them. Here are Republicans, and going into each one of them, they all have various different platforms that you can find on our website, elonnewsnetwork.com. Maeve?
Thank you so much, Brian. Stay with us. We'll be back soon.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Kids will spend 15 minutes watching online videos like this one.
Brushing for 2 minutes now can save your child from severe tooth pain later. 2 minutes, twice a day. They have the time.
I rescued Toast from a shelter in 2011. I love Toast because she's a lazy diva. Toast does whatever she wants, obviously. She's sleeping right now. She's an epic snuggler. She's so comforting. She's so loving. Toast makes me laugh. When I walked into the shelter, I knew right then that she was special.
You make me wear my bike helmet. Taught me never to run with scissors. And to follow the swimming rules. You tell me to stay away from drugs. To always buckle my seatbelt.
So why do you keep a loaded gun in your drawer?
How safe is that?
You asked them to follow some safety rules. Now they're asking you. In fact, they're counting on you. Never let your gun get into the wrong hands. Remember, always lock it up. Visit ncpc.org.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. Getting that college education? What are you gonna do? Graduate and take some office job? Be like everybody else? Or will you dare do something different? Like, be a teacher. You could be my teacher. You got the skills. The smarts? Yes, you. You could be the teacher I never forget. That'd be cool. Does that corporate job even have recess? What are you gonna make of yourself? What are you gonna make of me?
Over the weekend, former Vice President Joe Biden was in the state. Let's take a look back at that rally.
Our next president, Joe Biden.
Hello, Raleigh. On Tuesday, we have a chance to change and set a new path. You literally, here in North Carolina, you hold in your hands the power to determine the next Democratic nominee. That's not hyperbole, it's a fact. You can determine who the next nominee is. You can go out and cast your vote, as pointed out today. But today, when you leave here, if you haven't voted, go vote.
And that's one of the things that I really like about him, his experience. But, as we age and get older, sometimes we're not as sharp. But I know that he'll have good people around him to help him. And I think that's important because it's a team thing. It's not just a one-man thing.
Like many of you, I've lost a lot in my life. Some of you have lost a lot more than I have. But I tell you what, and I've lived through some moments of crisis in my life with my family. But I'll be damned if I'm going to lose my country to this man at all.
I'm a Republican. I plan on voting for Trump, but I want to know both sides. And I think he has a good chance.
I like that he was part of Obama's administration, and just that he seems to be pretty moderate as opposed to some of the more liberal candidates right now. And we're not really into socialism, so not excited about Bernie.
And we'll head over now to Baylor Rodman. Baylor, now that Biden has those two key endorsements from Buttigieg and Klobuchar, how is that affecting the results?
Oh, it is affecting it big time, Maeve. As you just said, the Biden campaign probably could not be happier tonight because we have another projection to make. ENN can now project that the former Vice President Joe Biden will win the state of Tennessee with 40% of the vote there, followed by Bernie Sanders, about 20% behind there, with 24.1% of the vote. So yes, absolutely, those endorsements of Amy Klobuchar and the former South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg was a huge help to the Biden campaign and really got their forces going moving into Super Tuesday. I want to talk about another race right now that Joe Biden is doing pretty well in, but it is really contested at this point, is in the state of Maine. Look at this. 40% of the precincts are now reporting at this hour. Joe Biden is in the lead very slightly with 34.1%, followed by the Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders with 34%. Currently, Klobuchar is meeting that 15% threshold where she is able to get a delegate, whereas Bloomberg is not. As the panel said, Bloomberg was really set to be the wrench that really threw into this race come Super Tuesday. Currently, that is not the case. Certain places not even receiving delegates, like here in Maine so far. Hasn't won one of the 14 states here in the U.S. so far. It is a good night for Joe Biden. We will be watching the state of Maine and, of course, California as that comes in, and Texas. We still have not yet called that. Maeve?
And we're now going to go back to our Amanda Gibson down at the Mosley Center. Amanda, what's it like over there?
Thanks so much, Maeve. We are just 2 hours into our live watch party
hosted by Elon Votes in the Mosley Student Center, and I am joined by freshman Trevor Mullen, and he's a political science major, and this was his first election to participate in. So what was it like to be able to vote? You voted early, but what was it like to be able to participate this year, especially in North Carolina, which is a battleground state?
Yeah, I think it was great to really go out for the first time. I didn't really know what to expect in terms of that, but I mean, I know my vote counts a little bit more than other people's might in states like California or New York or other deep red states. So it was really great to know that I was making an important difference, and especially being the first time around and being able to vote in such an important primary as well.
And so Bernie Sanders is someone who is getting a lot of the college student vote. So was he able to get your vote, or who did you end up voting for?
No, I ended up voting for Amy Klobuchar before she actually dropped out. So funny enough, my first vote didn't really matter as much. But yeah, he didn't really sway me enough personally. But yeah, he wasn't able to get mine, sadly, I guess.
And so how will tonight's primaries, especially that Amy ended up dropping out, how will tonight's results impact your vote in the future?
I think it'll be important to see definitely, obviously, who wins. Me, I'm an independent, so I could have chosen to vote in Republican or Democratic primary, and it's definitely going to make a difference, especially today. I mean, a third of the delegates are given out, so I'm going to see really who's going to be on the ballot come November. So we'll have to wait and see.
You're a voting ambassador for Elon Votes, so you're talking a little bit more about how you want to see more Elon students. Why is that important for you to see that Democratic participation?
Yeah, a Princeton review actually just came out and saying that Elon was one of the least civically engaged college campuses in the United States, and I think in 2012, 11% of Elon students came out. 2016, 33% of Elon students came out, and that's just really disheartening. How important voting is. That is our voice on the major civic level, and so many Elon students seem to be taking that for granted. And I mean, it's especially with so many important issues, especially in the Democratic Party, in terms of issues around specifically college age issues around student loan debt and things like that. And it's just interesting to see that students, either don't care or think it's too much of a hassle. And it's like I said, it's disheartening to see, especially as a political science major who really thinks this is one of the most important things should be doing.
Thank you so much for your time, Trevor. And so we are, like I said, 2 hours into this watch party. We had about 30 people here at the beginning, and they're starting to filter out, but we'll keep you updated as the night continues. Maeve, back to you in the studio.
And Trevor Mullen was just elected the vice president for the class of 2023. Again, the president of that class is going to be Chase Solomon, with Secretary Kimberly Castano and Treasurer Kiara Hunter. The two senators for that class are Blake Dixon and Victoria. We will be right back after the break.
Listen to me. I am captain of the track team. And if I'm late,
She doesn't really think she's going to get out of here, does she?
Be nice. She's new. Hello, is anyone there? Ugh!
Wow. Even from our standards, you look awful.
Oh, sweetie, what happened? Me? My friend Becky got to talk to this super cute boy, and I tried to act like I wasn't jealous, but I so totally was. And then out of nowhere, this concrete barrier just popped up. Maybe it was a semi.
You mean you were driving?
Yeah. I mean, I know the whole eyes on the road thing, but this was a super important text. Maybe you have to know, Becky.
Texting? Great.
But it was only like 5 seconds, and I'm a really, really fast texter, so it wasn't even a big deal. Actually, has she texted me back yet? Wow, I get like no bars in this place. I wonder if they have Wi-Fi here.
Awkward. I'm the awkward silence. You try to avoid me, then there I am again.
But an awkward silence can be a great thing.
Like Kelly here is about to demonstrate.
You haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
I'll be right back.
Hi. You think you're probably sober?
Yeah.
But you're thinking about taking the back roads home, just in case. If you're probably sober, then why would you do that? Good choice.
Probably okay isn't okay. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
That's a full glass of wine. I'll be chatting you later.
And I'm now going to pass it over to our Brian Ray, who has an update on that Alamance County tax referendum. Brian?
Maeve, you talked a little bit about this tax referendum earlier, but as a reminder, it's a proposal for the sales and use tax rate to increase from 6.75%, which it is right now, to 7%, and that would hopefully decrease property taxes, which is what Alamance County commissioners say. So taking a look at the polls during break, right now 56% of the precincts are reporting in Alamance County, and about 58.55% of voters are against that sales tax referendum, and 41.47% are for that tax referendum. So it looks like right now most Alamance County residents are against that increased tax, but again, only 56% of those precincts are reporting, so it's a little too early to tell, but that is an update for you. Maeve?
And we are now back with Sam and Emma. How would you guys feel about this tax referendum if it passes?
I honestly don't know as much about it as I should, but I know that a big problem that Alamance County is dealing with is that a lot of people are living here but not working here or sending their kids to school here. So we do have very low property tax compared to counties around us. And so I know something that especially the county commissioners and candidates running for that, or they're working on trying to get people to work here, live here. And if you're going to live here, like, make Alamance your home, invest within your community.
I definitely understand why you wouldn't want to pass it, because an increase from 7%, especially on ordinary products that you buy, like say if you go to like the grocery store, you'll definitely feel that impact as a college student or just a regular student, versus when it comes to property tax. As a student, I do not feel property tax because I rent here, I use the Elon facilities, and I think that through not cutting this or not using this tax referendum, even though property taxes are increasing here, the solution is not an increase in sales tax.
Yeah, and like we said, that won't affect groceries or gas. But you two are, that's totally fine. You two are both seniors, so I know that you'll be graduating, but what is something that you would like to see improved in Alamance County?
I think the education is the biggest part, one of the biggest factors in Alamance County. I mean, they're teaching in like trailers that are older than most of the teachers, and I think that's a huge issue. And the teachers have to work summer jobs and afternoon jobs and babysitting and nannying and all this stuff just to provide means. But these are the people we're entrusting to teach our children, to raise our children when we're at work. And so I think that's a huge issue within Alamance County.
I think that as an Alamance County, that Elon needs to be working better with Alamance County and making a better community, especially in education. There needs to be more funding and better opportunities for kids, especially in early education, from like pre-K to middle school and things like that.
All right, Sam and Emma, again, thank you so much for being here and joining us. President Trump was in Charlotte yesterday, just ahead of the primary. Our team went down there to talk to his supporters and see what they were looking forward to on Super Tuesday.
Mr. President, you're going to kick their ass in November.
He's working for me. He's working for my children, my grandchildren, my values, my safety, and my country.
He's the most outspoken president that we've ever had in our history, and I love that about him. He doesn't care what anyone thinks, he just says what's on his mind.
I'm from the millennial generation. Millennials suffered during the Great Recession. That was not too long ago. But under President Trump, we have prosperity, we have jobs, we have opportunity, we have higher paychecks. all of that is reversible should big government takeover policies be embraced in this nation if any Democrat were elected.
The Democrat Party has gone crazy. And we have made America great again. Thank you, North Carolina, thank you.
And we will be right back after the break.
His entire bowl of nachos. But tonight, he's earned that right. Because a few hours ago, in the middle of happy hour, he recognized a sign. Not from the gods or a bolt of lightning, but from a double heart, a kissy face, and a fourth ha in ha ha ha. That's when Jordan knew he was buzzed. So when it was time to go, he got a ride home instead of driving. Be a legend like Jordan. Recognize your buzzed warning signs and get a ride home. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
Let me tell you about the toughest guy on earth. He has the crazy strength to lift the man that raised him up without even flinching. This guy, no, this warrior, will always be by his father's side, even if his dad will hardly remember. If this guy isn't the toughest guy on the planet, then I don't know who is. Caregiving is tougher than tough. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
They said I couldn't dream. Called me a piece of trash and swore that's all I'd ever be. Said a bottle couldn't see the ocean. Give up. Go back to the dumpster. But I didn't listen. I made my way. And now, I am what I've always wanted to be.
Doesn't see race. Love is love.
And obviously we're following the state of North Carolina here on Super Tuesday, but the other two big states with delegates are Texas and California. We are joined back again by Andrea Sheets and Kara Shalfu. What were you guys predicting or even hearing about with Texas and California?
Yeah, I think with Texas specifically, when I last checked, Sanders was leading a little bit. It'll be interesting to see how Beto's endorsement of Biden coming yesterday, as well as Pete and Amy also in Texas, how that kind of plays out and influences the election.
Yeah, I know. I think California kind of has a reputation of being very liberal, and so I think that gives Senator Sanders an edge. Yeah. But it is the state is very across the board, despite its reputation. So I think Biden could really pull something out.
Yeah, and ENN is projecting that Joe Biden has won Massachusetts. How do you guys feel about that?
I was not expecting that at all.
I wonder what this means for this Warren campaign.
Yeah.
I think that's her home state. I think it sends a message if she doesn't win that.
Definitely. It also goes against all the projections that Biden would sweep the southern states and not really make an impact in the northern states.
Yeah, perfect. And thank you guys so much for joining us. We do also have information that Elizabeth Warren in her home state of Massachusetts is in third place. Baylor, what more can you tell us about that Massachusetts primary?
Yes, absolutely. As you said, ENN can now project that that Joe Biden will be coming in as projecting here. We got to get out of this graphic to make a quick update, but he will be leading in that. Elizabeth Warren is in third, and it looks like that she will potentially receive delegates, but again, we're still getting some information here. She may not absolutely do that. So again, what does this mean for her campaign? Well, that's going to be the question up in the air. Well, you talked a little bit about Texas, and we want to go into that a little bit as well. This is still right now not been called. Bernie Sanders in the lead with 28.8%, Joe Biden 22.8%. So here's the thing. Yes, it's a really good night for Joe Biden, but we still haven't heard yet from two states, one being Texas and the other being California. Remember, those are the biggest pot of delegates. 228 delegates up for grabs here in Texas and over 400 in California. So when we look at the delegate count, and of course this is still being updated, Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders are not that far out from each other, still within about 50 delegates rather, from one another. So again, without calling Texas, without calling California, yes, Joe Biden's having a great night, but you cannot count the Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders out just yet, as we have all of these delegates up for grabs. So it's still going to be a long night ahead to see who shakes out on top. Maeve?
ENN is projecting that Dennis Riddell will become the Republican nominee for the North Carolina 64th District for that North Carolina House. He is winning with 84% of the vote, and again, 57% of precincts reporting. In November, he will face off against Eric Henry. He will be the Democratic nominee, and Riddell will be the Republican nominee. We'll have all the news you need to know after the break. Again, make sure to tune into our website, elonnewsnetwork.com, and follow us on social media for more updates.
What are you, superheroes?
Just four brothers who hate bullies and love this city. Gear up, guys.
What do you think you're doing, Kevin?
Was just gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
Like hearing voices?
Like your text-to-emoji ratio?
Oh man, the selfies.
Selfie, nailed it. We all have warning signs that let us know that we're probably not okay to drive. Mine is pretending to be your subconscious.
Craig, come on man, let's split a ride home.
And welcome back. The state of the race as far as that Alamance County tax referendum, and the county commissioners are a little too close to call. But Brian, what can you tell us about those elections?
Yeah, so I just checked up on the county commissioners during break. And right now for the Democrats, Kristen Powers, Bob Byrd, and Dreama Caldwell are the three in the lead. So as a reminder, each party will pick three to go onto the general election in November. And then from there, from each party, 3 from Republican, 3 from Democrat, voters will select 3 in total. So for Republicans, we have Bill Ashley, John Paisley Jr., and Pamela Thompson and James Kirkpatrick are kind of neck and neck. So it's kind of hard to tell right now. But those are the 3 who are in the lead for each party right now.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And then, Baylor, what are your big takeaways tonight?
Well, really, I mean, obviously, with Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar dropping out of the race and going into Joe Biden, that was major. That really helped him go into Super Tuesday. That gave him a lot of momentum. I will say, though, it's not over. You know, Joe Biden has a lot of delegates now behind his back. He's currently in the lead, but Bernie Sanders is not that far behind. So far, just 50 delegates behind. Texas has yet to be called. California has yet to be called. North Carolina was called for Biden, right? But that is the 3rd biggest pot of delegates. California being number 1 with over 400 at stake. Texas with being over 200 at stake. So you never know what could happen.
And again, back to that county commissioner race. Here is that state of the race as far as those Democratic candidates. Kristen Powers with 26% of the vote, along with Bob Byrd, and then Dreama Caldwell at 18%. Reminder, out of those 5 candidates, 3 will go on to the general election. There are the Republicans. We have in the lead Bill Lashley with 21%, John Paisley Jr. with 19%, and Pamela Thompson with 17%. And there is that Alamance County tax referendum, another state of the race, 59% against, 41% for. Again, those races are too close to call, but that is the state of the race. And that is all the news we have for you tonight. Thank you so much for joining us for our special coverage this Super Tuesday.
more politics coverage, make sure to go to our website, Elon News Network, and click on the Politics tab.
And don't forget to follow us on social media at Elon News Network.
From all of us here on the desk and in our newsroom, have a great night.